Hello, I'm Jordan. I'm going to do yet another tag today. I did squeeze in a discussion video yesterday, so I promise I'm not exclusively interested in tags, but I was tagged, so I'm going to do it. This is the Bar in the Bookcase tag, created by Jaylen over at the Bar in the Bookcase, which is a fantastic channel, and I was tagged kindly by Alex over at What Page Are You On? And it's a really clever, fun tag. So the first prompt is old-fashioned, and that is a historical fiction recommendation. I struggled with this a little bit, surprisingly, because I kind of think of myself as a person who really enjoys historical fiction, but when I was thinking about it, I realized that there's not actually that many historical fiction novels that I really like a lot. Sarah Waters came to mind, but I'm going to be talking about one of her books later on in the tag, so I didn't want to talk about her twice. So I'm going to go with a book called Death Comes to the Archbishop by Willa Cather, who's probably better known for writing My Antonia and Oh Pioneers, neither of which I've read. But Death Comes for the Archbishop is really, really good. It's about a couple of priests. I don't think they're exactly missionaries, but they're priests in the American Southwest, I think New Mexico, and that's just one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And Cather does a fantastic job describing the feel of that area, and it's a really good book. It's kind of one of those interesting novels that's structured almost like a book of connected short stories. It's just full of digressions and strange little side stories, but it's quite good. I recommend it. Prompt 2 is Sidecar, book with a strong supporting character. I'm going to say Mr. Bucket, or Inspector Bucket from Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship going on with Charles Dickens. I feel like generally his characters are very, very one-dimensional, and I think his most interesting characters tend to be the ones that you get the sense that he doesn't exactly know what to make of. The characters that don't really fit into his really narrow, simple worldview. And Mr. Bucket is an example of that. He is a detective, and he's got this weird mixture of very kind of a vicious, disinterested intelligence mixed with like charm and just a gentlemanly approachability. He's quite an interesting character. Prompt 3 is Manhattan, a book set in New York. I'm going to go with The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon? I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name. This was a book that was recommended to me by my mom. I read almost no contemporary fiction, and the ones that I do read are recommended to me by my mom because she reads a lot of it. And this is one of the ones that she brought up to me, and I thought it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. It's about comic books largely, and I have absolutely no interest at all in comic books, so it's a testament to how good this is that I still found it very engaging. But it's set mostly in New York City, I think from like the 1930s to the 50s, and my favorite aspect of it was the way he wrote about New York, particularly in the early sections that are in the 30s. I thought were quite enjoyable. Next is Bloody Mary, a book that scared you or messed you up. I'm going to go here with a not long short story or novella that I read a week or two ago by Algernon Blackwood, and it's called The Wendigo. And it is legitimately unsettling, I think. I found myself thinking about it at work the other day, and I actually gave myself chills. It's set, I believe, in the Canadian wilderness, and it just does a fantastic job of describing the kind of eerie feeling that huge spaces of wilderness sometimes have. You should certainly check it out if you're interested in horror stories. I'm not sure if anything Blackwood wrote is in print or not anymore. I got my copy from the Gutenberg project, and it was free, so that's great. But yeah, I highly recommend that, The Wendigo by Algernon Blackwood. Next is Espresso Martini, book that kept you reading into the night. I actually work nights, so I'm always reading into the night, but in the spirit of the question, I'm just going to go with a book that I found difficult to put down. And for that, I'm going to say The Terror by Dan Simmons. And Simmons is probably best known as a sci-fi writer, particularly for writing Hyperion, which is an absolutely great sci-fi novel. But I think I actually prefer The Terror, which is an epic historical fiction slash horror novel, which I found just endlessly entertaining. And it's like, I think, 800 or 900 pages long, and I'm an extremely slow reader. But I read it in a few days. It's just so fast-paced and so engaging and entertaining. The next is Sazerac. I have no idea what that drink is, but the prompt is a book that left you disoriented. Here I'm going to go with two books. It's the only two books I've read from Philip K. Dick, and that is Ubik and The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. And I didn't really like either one of them all that much, but I do think they are highly disorienting, both of them. And as I understand it, Dick's writing in general just has this quality of the fabric of it is always shifting. There's no base reality. It's kind of it's always morphing into something strange, and it's never resolved. At least in the two I read, nothing was resolved. You're never sure exactly what happened or what's going to happen, and he's very, very good at that. I think I can't think of another writer who's as good at that, and I think he might have been so good at that because he was not a particularly meticulous writer, I get the impression. So they don't feel like they're planned works necessarily, but I think it works in his favor in a lot of ways. Next one is Long Island Iced Tea, a book that is doing too much. Bonus points if it works anyway. This doesn't work anyway, I don't think, and I'm going to say Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. Somewhere in this behemoth, I think there is a very good book about addiction and depression. I think Foster had an amazing gift for writing about ordinary people talking about ordinary things and writing about the horror of the mundane, so to speak, and about the kind of existential, crushing qualities that boredom can have. But this book is trying to do way too much, I think. It has a million unnecessary dead-end subplots, a bunch of flat characters that contribute nothing, and a whole bunch of like Pynchonian conceit without any of the imaginative flair of Pynchon at all. But like I said, there are moments in this book, I read this over 10 years ago, and there are moments in this book that I think about frequently still, and there are those moments of people talking and being just unusually honest with each other, and I think he was extremely good at that. So it's not a complete loss, but I do think it's trying to do way too much. And the next is Negroni. Don't know what that is either. A book with a love triangle. I'm gonna say you could say anything by Thomas Hardy. I think Katie over at Books and Things always talks about how he's a master of the love triangle, but also the love quadrangle and any other geometric shape. I'm going to say Tessa the D'Urbervilles, just because that is, I think, an unusual one, and that the two men in Tessa's life are so repulsive, and she is not strong enough to withstand either one of them. So it's not a romantic book at all. It's probably my favorite Hardy novel that I've read. But yeah, it's a highly unusual and kind of disturbing love triangle going on in that one. Next is Bay Breeze, book with a light, chill, heartwarming vibes. I'm going to go with The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Sorry, I should have looked that up before. I think it's Kenneth Grahame. That's a book I read last summer, I think, and I read it in a night. It's just so charming and heartwarming and atmospheric and English. As an American, I can't think of a book that feels more English to me than The Wind in the Willows, but it's a lot of fun. And then we're going to go to Dark and Stormy, book that's dark, thrilling, and menacing. Bonus point if the setting matches. Of course, what came to mind here was my favorite novel of all time, which is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. But since I already talked about that in a previous tag, I'm going to go with a Sarah Waters novel called The Little Stranger, which I also read fairly recently. And that's just a really meticulously done, good, kind of gothic ghost story. And Waters is just extremely good at just evoking this sense of dread, particularly in that book. There's several scenes in that book that I think are pretty infamous for being quite frightening. But there's one scene I was blown away by where it's just these two people talking in a garden in winter, and nothing happens, but there's just this overwhelming sense of menace throughout the entire scene, which I just thought was masterfully done. I highly enjoyed that. It might be my favorite Sarah Waters novel. And then the final one is Martini, classic recommendation. I'm going to say Villette by Charlotte Bronte, simply because I feel like it's overshadowed by Jane Eyre. And I do love Jane Eyre, of course, but I think Villette is just, I prefer it. I think it's more focused, and it's a little darker. And the protagonist, I believe her name is Lucy Snow, is just a way more interesting character than Jane Eyre, I think. It's a weird experience being in her hands as a narrator, because she's not only unreliable, but I think she's probably at least half insane. So it makes for a very strange, exciting reading experience. So that is it. That is the bar in the bookcase tag. I struggled with that one a little bit, saying it. Sorry, I'm not sure why I'm having such a hard time talking today. But I'm going to tag a couple people. I am going to tag, sorry, let me pull up my list here. I'm going to tag Drawn to Stories, and I'm going to tag Pete's Pensive, and I'm going to tag Bits of Lit. So I'd love to see what you guys have to say about this, and as always, if you're seeing this and I didn't happen to tag you, feel free to do it. It's a lot of fun. So thanks for watching, and have a good day.